Welcome to Sold Out, the podcast where we travel through time to try to see the biggest movies on the big screen, only to find out that they're sold out. My name's Ian. I'm here with my co-host, Michael Smith.
Hi, Ian. How are you doing?
I'm doing super. How you doing, Michael?
Doing great. I am Michael Smith. I am a former film student and a film critic with over 15 years of experience. I used to write reviews for a bunch of outlets, some of them being the Fan-Sided Network and MoviePass. But now I'm super happy to be co-hosting Sold Out.
And I'm super happy to have you as my co-host. Again, I'm Ian Tarter. I've been a media critic for a lot of years. I also just absolutely love movies. I was raised by them. And now as they're getting up there in their years, I've decided to take care of them in their convalescence home.
Convalescent.
Well, everybody's always talking about how movies are dying, right?
You know, I heard that movie theaters were dying, though I would argue they are having a bit of a comeback.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about how great this summer has been to us so far. And I know this will come out in a couple weeks and things aren't always timely, but I just saw Superman and I think movie theaters are doing great. I went and saw it on a Tuesday afternoon and it was like 3/4 full.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, the last movie I saw in theaters was F1 and similar experience. I mean, it was a packed theater. I saw it once kind of on a weekend, saw it again on a weekday, and both times, I mean, people were there. Movies are making money. People are talking about them. I take issue with anyone who says it is a dying art.
I think everybody likes saying it's a dying art. At any rate, we have traveled through time again, and we are now in 2002. We're in November of 2002, which I love that we're not in a summer movie era right now because it's given us some really great and different options.
Lots of options.
Last week, we watched 8 Mile, which I had never seen before and was a really pleasant surprise. This week, we are here to see Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. It is again sold out, so we're going to catch one other movie before we see Harry Potter next week. But what's playing?
Okay, lots of stuff is playing. I think by our count, there were like over 100 movies that were out that weekend.
I know. If movie theaters definitely weren't dying in 2002.
No, they were not. And there were some big hits. The first Jackass movie was out. Sweet Home Alabama, a Reese Witherspoon rom-com. The Santa Claus 2, this is November. We're gearing up for the holidays.
I really embarrassingly loved the Santa Claus as a child.
I also did.
Okay. Because I find Tim Allen
still do.
Kind of impossible to watch. I haven't gone back and rewatched it because everything about Tim Allen makes my skin crawl now.
Yeah, no, I have young kids. And so every, winter we watch, a nice collection of those holiday movies.
Yeah.
And the Santa Claus is absolutely among them.
It's definitely the movie that taught me what the word clause means.
And then you went to law school.
Only briefly, but yes, I did. So what else is playing?
Punch Drunk Love, the Paul Thomas Anderson, Adam Sandler collaboration.
That guy's been making good movies for so long. I saw the preview. They had the full preview for One Battle After Another yesterday at Superman.
Yeah, I saw that recently too.
Oh, I cannot wait.
I have never been so excited to see a movie and so confused about what the movie may or may not be about.
Licorice Pizza.
But yeah, no, I love Paul Thomas Anderson. I think he made both the best film of the 1990s and the aughts.
Ooh, what are those two movies?
Boogie Nights and There Will Be Blood.
Wow, okay. I don't know if he made the best, but I love both of those movies. I prefer Magnolia just a little bit to Boogie Nights.
I don't know that I'd argue very hard against that.
And I don't know that I'd argue very hard against you liking Boogie Nights. Yeah. I haven't seen Punch Drunk Love in a very long time.
Nor have I, actually.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to do it this week, but we went with something else.
We did go with something else, and I am very excited about that something else.
We decided of the many good movies playing this weekend that we were going to see Studio Ghibli's and Miyazaki's Spirited Away.
Yeah, this is our first animated film.
It is, yeah.
This is our first foreign film.
Oh my gosh, it is. That's wild.
And so this is just a really exciting movie to talk about. I'm a little bit, daunted by the task of talking about this movie.
Yeah, it's a very big movie for those who have seen it. Mm-hmm. It is beloved. It's often listed among the top 100 movies of any list that it's ever on. It's often listed as one of the best animated films ever made. It did win the Oscar for Best Animated Picture. It is just a universally beloved film.
By those who have seen it. And I guess depending on where you live, your mileage may vary on that one.
That's true. And that's something we're going to go into, I think. So let's do it. Let's watch Spirited Away. I'll grab the tickets.
I'll grab the popcorn.
Do this.
You've got Daddy here. He's got credit cards and cash.
You have to hold your breath while we cross the bridge.
Come on, get to work, you little rats!
Give a job to anyone who asks.
I think he needs help! It feels like there's a thorn in his side! Haku! Fight him! Come on!
Medicine from the river spirit.
And your real name is Kohaku River. Okay, I'm ready. I'll take your test.
Come on, Chihiro. Let's get to our new home.
I am feeling just so much joy right now.
I love this movie. There's no reason to bury the lead here. I absolutely adore Spirited Away. I watch this movie at least once a year.
Have you ever met someone who has seen this movie and didn't love it?
No. I've met a lot of people who have not seen it.
Yeah, same.
But I don't think anyone has even been lukewarm on it.
Yeah. Well, let's take our break. And when we come back, I think if you have not seen this film, please go out there and watch it. It is a beautiful film. It's streaming on HBO Max. In fact, all of Studio Ghibli films, or most of them are now. And if you have seen it, join us for a great conversation on Spirited Away. We'll be back right after the break. Welcome back to Sold Out. We just watched Spirited Away, and now Michael is going to give us a synopsis of this beautiful tone poem of a film.
I'm going to try. So, after her parents are turned into pigs as a punishment for engorging themselves on stolen food in an abandoned theme park, Chihiro meets a mysterious boy named Haku, who explains that the park is a resort for spirits. In order to stay in this spirit world long enough to save her parents, Chihiro must find work at a bathhouse run by Yubaba, the crafty rich witch who transformed her parents and is fattening them up to feed as food to the guests of the spa. As she works to figure out a rescue plan, she encounters a dragon, killer origami, a Spider-Man, not that one, talking frogs, a giant baby, and a gold-producing blob with a big appetite, among others.
The Spider-Man, are you referring to Kamachi?
Sure am.
Oh, okay. I love Kamachi.
I do too.
Let's talk about the production of this film. It has a really interesting history as far as how it got made and the studio that made it. If you're just now being introduced to this Japanese animation studio, they've made a lot of films over the last, 30, 35 years now.
Yeah, they've been around for a long time.
And this really was their magnum opus in a lot of ways. It accomplished things that no other film had ever accomplished in Japan. It became a huge international hit. If we were doing this film in Japanese, this would be the film that we came to see in the weekend because it was the #1 grossing film for 20 years in Japan.
Yeah, it made, I believe, the equivalent of $250 million, which would be impressive in the United States with a population that is much, much bigger.
Yeah. Its current worldwide gross is like $350 million. But when it was released in the United States on the weekend that we went to see it instead of Harry Potter, that weekend it made $440,000.
And I mean, it even after it won the Academy Award and Disney re-released it with a relatively wide release, I mean, it only got to like 10 million, I think, box office.
Well, Disney was really nervous about this movie. So let's talk a little bit about how it came to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Studio Ghibli had made a deal with Disney to start bringing their films over, beginning with Princess Mononoke in 1996. Have you seen Mononoke?
I haven't.
I haven't seen that one either. I've seen a lot of their movies, and I that one's been on my list for a long time. But they made a deal to bring it over. It was to be distributed through actually Miramax, so the infamous Weinsteins were going to bring this to the United States. And there's this really great story about they were famous for cutting a lot of foreign films to be more palatable to American audiences, which, whatever, it's a business decision.
I can see the decision.
Yeah, I can see the decision too. But regardless, when the producers of Mononoke sent the film over, it was sent over with a samurai sword and a note that said, "No cuts." And But it was sent over, didn't get very wide release, and it made $140,000 on its opening weekend in the United States,
Oof.
which is rough. Nobody went to see this movie in America. And I'll admit, I really didn't know about these movies until long after they'd been out of theaters.
Yeah, I was very late to the Studio Ghibli game. I am admittedly not a big anime person. And I think, the result of that was that my exposure had been limited, in my younger years. And so I just didn't think these movies were for me. And then, later in life, in my 20s, I think, was when I was kind of first introduced to these by, my now wife, whose taste in movies I trust, and realized that they were very different than what I expected them to be in the best way.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. I was introduced to them by a girlfriend, and they were all on Netflix very briefly back in like 2011, 2012. Like all of them were there, and she'd encouraged me to watch, I think Spirited Away is the first one, which makes sense. That is a great entry point if you're interested in getting into these movies. And not unlike you, I had no interest in anime. And yeah, I saw this film and it just...
I don't think you can discuss this movie without just acknowledging how beautiful it really is and what a just technical artistic masterpiece it is. So this movie is largely hand-drawn.
Yeah.
There is some very selective use of CG, like water is sort of enhanced with CG.
There's a camera movement, I think.
Camera movement, a couple of like really fast sort of shots of like, there's one where she like is running through some like woods or bushes that you can tell is a little bit enhanced by the CG. But the characters themselves are very hand-drawn. And every single character has so much detail and movement and just the care that had to go into creating this it's unbelievable. There's the scene in the boiler room where the little soot sprites are carrying the coal into the boiler. And there's dozens, if not hundreds, of these little tiny soot sprites. And no, they're not, quickly reproduced using a computer. Each one of them is hand-drawn and unique with their own movements. Every background character, every background is just, it's crafted to a point where I think you could probably pause this movie at complete random at any moment and it'd be worthy of framing and hanging on the wall.
I tried to find estimates of like how long it took to make, and because Studio Ghibli is notoriously quiet on so many things, the best I could find was it was about a month a minute to make.
And this is a long movie.
It is the longest animated film to win Best Picture because it's over 2 hours. Generally, they do not go on this long, and because it is hand-drawn, it took years to craft this movie, but the team there is also famous for not having balance and working extraordinarily long hours because they love the work and they're so invested in what they do. So that's why no one's quite sure how long the movie actually took to make, but it was quite an undertaking and just gorgeously done. It touched emotional places inside of me that I didn't know existed.
I'm glad you say that because earlier I said that I watch this movie probably once a year at least. And while I revisit this movie and feel those emotions, this viewing is the first one where I've really thought very deeply about this movie.
Same. I knew we would be talking about it today, so as I watched it, I took copious notes, and normally I experience it more as just an emotional journey. And this time, I appreciated it differently, but definitely not less.
Yeah.
Taking this approach. And, speaking of those deep emotional places inside me that I didn't know existed, Miyazaki, the auteur of Studio Ghibli and really like the great creative force behind it, he made this film specifically for 10-year-old girls because he felt that there wasn't art in Japan that helped them to find confidence. He encountered some manga that was really popular among girls, and he determined that it was just all about romance and wasn't really like building these young girls up to become like great young women and help them enter into their adolescence. And so this movie was made specifically for, I think it was a daughter of a friend that they would vacation with in a cabin to help her sort of take that journey. And when I say that it touched emotional places inside of me, I mean the 10-year-old girl emotional places inside of me. Because they're in there somewhere. I'm not sure where, but they clearly exist because this movie speaks to me.
Leaving that one alone.
So he made that film specifically for them. And what I found really, really fascinating as I was looking into the making of this movie, though, is do you know that they don't use scripts to make their films?
I did not know that.
He doesn't write a script. They just start animating based on drawings and storyboards and things that he gives to the artists, and they just follow the journey of where they think things would go based on the things that happened prior.
That's fascinating. So I know that he had a story that he wanted to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there was a lot of storyboarding that happened.
Yeah.
I also know that if he was given free reign and did not have to turn this into a movie that people would watch, it would have been like 4 hours long.
Well, in an interview I read with him, he said that two of the things that were the most difficult for him in making the movie was that he wanted to make it 4 hours and he knew he couldn't, and that he thought Chihiro wasn't cute enough.
I read that a lot. This is, I mentioned that I felt daunted by this movie, and I think it's because it does hit those emotional places. And so I feel this like connection and responsibility to the movie. And so I did a lot of reading, both before and after watching this, just to like get an idea what was going on. And that came up so much. It was weird.
Yeah. He said it because he knew that people wanted to see cute characters, but he specifically wanted a girl that was very relatable, that young girls could see themselves in.
The mission of the movie, right, is that he didn't want this to be this like vapid movie about being pretty and finding romance. He wanted it to be about a girl finding herself. And so I think having it, follow a character that one can sort of transpose themselves onto makes a lot of sense and is quite important to the movie working.
I think it was a great artistic choice, and I'm glad he stuck with it. But it was his fear when he saw some of the early rushes where he was like, can't we just make her just a little cuter? This poor homely Chihiro.
Yeah, and I guess by the time the movie was over, he had kind of come around to the fact that like she was going to grow into someone that could be attractive, which I think, I don't know if this is his intent, but I think that does speak to how well an audience can connect to this character, that if you don't have that initial like aesthetic connection, the emotional journey and watching Chihiro grow allows you to really connect and care about this character in a way that is deeper than that.
Interestingly, though, a lot of people react very negatively to Chihiro when they first encounter her as a bratty young girl that's being taken away from her home. In fact,
as the parent of a 10-year-old girl.
That's right. You have one of those, don't you?
I have exactly one of those. Let's just say they did a good job.
Well represented.
Yeah.
Art imitating life. Male audiences especially really did not like Chihiro, reacted very negatively to her. There's a lot of negative feedback about her, and you sort of have to get past that initial encounter with Chihiro to go on this journey with her, which again, I think is a brilliant choice. But I mean, we could say it impacted sales, but as we said, the movie was a smash hit worldwide. And so this wasn't an issue for Chihiro not being cute, for her being like throwing a tantrum, having the feelings she has. But the reality is, you say being the father of a 10-year-old girl, but this girl's being taken away from her home. That is the first you encounter her in the back of a car with all of her belongings, moving to a completely new place. And did you do much moving when you were young? Like, did you change schools? Or?
Yeah, I lived in the same house from 3 years old all the way to living on my own.
I lost count of moving when I was like 15. We'd moved like 35 times.
Oh, geez.
And I went to 7 different schools, I think.
Oh my God, I went to the same school, kindergarten through 8th grade.
Maybe this is the emotional place inside of me that it touches, is that like I remember that feeling, especially when I was leaving a school that I liked and friends that I liked and a teacher that I liked, and just feeling so helpless in a world that feels like it didn't care what you thought or what you felt. And that the most important thing to you in the world is, really what school you go to and where your friends are. There isn't anything else that you have. You don't have a job. You don't really, you may have like riding your bike, but like you don't have hobbies that you're attached to. Your interests haven't fully formed yet. And so your identity is completely wrapped up in where you are. And so we're meeting Chihiro at this moment in her life where her entire identity is being torn away from her. So is she petulant? Absolutely. Is she
She's
whiny and
understandably upset.
yeah, as an adult, that's a hard thing to go through. As a 10-year-old girl, it is world shattering. So I think again the film just does a great job of representing that. But I love to play interviews with directors often, but obviously for Miyazaki this is challenging both because he doesn't speak English or speaks very very little English, and also because he famously really doesn't do very many interviews. In fact, when Spirited Away did win the Oscar, which is huge, and we need to talk about that as
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
he did not come to the Oscars to receive it.
Oh, I did not know that.
In fact, he didn't come for a variety of reasons. A, he does not like awards. He likes the work. He does not care about all the glitz and glamour, and he's been really clear on that for every award he's ever won. But more importantly, he actually did not come because of America's involvement in the Iraq War. 2002. He was protesting, and he was told by his publicist not to say that. So he just didn't show up. And Cameron Diaz, of all people, received the Oscar on behalf of Spirited Away, which...
That's weird.
Sure. I don't know why what was happening in 2002 where Cameron Diaz was the right person to receive this historic Oscar on his behalf. But yeah, later when he said he didn't care what his publicist thought anymore, he shared that it was in direct protest to he didn't want to come to a country. He is very famously anti-war.
Right. I mean, that shows up in multiple Studio Ghibli movies.
I mean, the most recent one, which won an Oscar, the second one, Boy and the Heron, is a strongly anti-war film.
Yeah, so he definitely doesn't, hide that sentiment at all. It's prevalent throughout his work. But yeah, I could see where they would say, if you don't have something nice to say, maybe don't say anything at all.
He really wanted the story to be very real, actually. And that's talking about Chihiro being a little bit homely, a little bit tantrumy.
Yep.
He wanted her to not be a satirical character. He wanted her to be of this world where she really felt very grounded and that she would have to persevere and find something within herself and find her way to the end of this quest with all of the things that were just within her. And so I think it feels satirical in the way that this world also sort of feels scary to Chihiro. When you start to look more deeply into this movie, you realize that there really isn't anything satirical about it. It just sort of presents satirical. Is this my anti-American Psycho problem?
It might be. For a movie that has a ton of fantastical elements, it actually does feel quite grounded in at least like an emotional reality. Like the characters and their motivations and their emotions, they all feel very real. I find Chihiro incredibly relatable. I think they actually nailed the kind of 10-year-old girl thing very well. Part of being a person means not being totally perfectly likable all the time or always saying the right thing or making the right decision. It's about sort of living through life and learning and growing through all of those experiences. And that's really the story of Chihiro here.
It's about her journey of not making all the right decisions and doing all the right things, but it's also her coming to understand that everyone around her is very much the same. This is a film in which you enter into a fantastical world. It feels as though it's a fairy tale. So you're looking naturally once you get that sense, you're looking naturally for a hero, for a villain, for a foil, for a comedic sidekick. You're looking for these things, and they present in the film as though they're there. But as you become more acquainted with the world and gain confidence in the spirit world and in yourself being able to navigate it with Chihiro, sort of through her, you recognize that despite appearances, none of those things really occupy this world. They're all just as complex and make good decisions and bad decisions, just like Chihiro does.
Yes. And what's great is that really applies to just about every character. And there are quite a few characters like this. Most movies will have, maybe a handful of characters that you really get anything major out of. And of that handful, at least a couple of them really do fall into these like clear categories of good and evil, if not all of them. And like you said, that does not exist here. But like even the sort of villain of the movie is not evil. And I think that's really important to understanding what this movie's really doing.
Well, let's get ahead because we can start to talk more about Chihiro and how she navigates this world.
Mhm.
So, who did you identify as being the sort of villain of the movie?
Well, I think Yubaba is presented in the sort of villain spot. If there's, a line of chairs and there's a chair for a villain, Yubaba's the one sitting in that chair. But I actually don't think she's a villain.
No, I actually think that's interesting though, because my first watching of the film, I always thought Zeniba was the villain initially. That's who and obviously that's undermined by the end of the film. But when you meet Zeniba and contrast her to Yubaba, Zeniba seems villainous. She's chasing Haku, who seems like the hero of the story. She comes and she switches all of the characters' identities to mess with the people of the bathhouse because at this point now you've actually grown accustomed to Yubaba in a certain way. You've grown accustomed to the bathhouse. This has become Chihiro's workplace. She has maybe not friends yet, but acquaintances. She understands how it functions. It's become a more comfortable place, even though it was scary initially. And then Zeniba is the one who comes in and disrupts this place. And so I thought Zeniba, and then I think on the second watching, knowing what I knew, I thought, well, maybe it's not Zeniba, maybe it's No Face who's the villain. And I think that there are, and I bring this up because I think that there are so many opportunities to look at characters in this movie and think, oh, that's my hero, that's my villain. But each one never really lives up to that title.
Yeah, because I mean, No Face obviously has villainous moments.
Like when he eats other characters.
Yeah.
That's incredibly villainous in any other movie.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked Jaws.
Is Jaws a villain?
Yeah.
The shark's a villain?
I think so.
But he doesn't have any motivation.
He's hungry.
Looking at him behind you now. I mean, yeah, he's just hungry. Not unlike No Face.
Yeah. But No Face, again, and this was something I kind of thought about for the first time in this. No Face is very uniquely motivated, right? I think definitely not a villain. I see No Face, and the name No Face is kind of perfect, is just lost and without an identity, and someone who sort of is looking for connection and apes what he sees around him. And the bathhouse is just this place of decadence and greed. And that's what he copies and then takes it to an extreme.
Welcome, the rich man. He's hard for you to miss. His butt keeps getting bigger, so there's plenty there to kiss. Ha ha! Oh, everybody bow down.
Welcome, rich man.
Beg for tips. This is the time. Beg for tips. Make yourselves a dime. Tips now.
Give me some gold! Give me some tips, please, sir. I'll do anything for you. I just need some tips.
You make such an interesting observation, a really great observation about No Face. So I think I saw that he apes everyone around him and that obviously he's without identity. In fact, he's translucent at times. And I don't know if I saw it as like, this is what's wrong with him, is that he doesn't have his own identity. He can't take it on. And therefore he becomes this monster. But I mean, and this is where maybe I'll go back to saying, isn't that every villain sort of has this sort of like hole and this emptiness inside of them. And so they try to fill it with whatever it is. And it usually winds up in them committing evil acts and eating characters around them.
Yeah.
But as a counterbalance to Chihiro, and I'm just putting this together now, is like you said what you said. Chihiro walks in full of fear. She walks in this world full of fear, and she's described as a rude little girl and really bad. And you can see her doing things that are rude because of her fear.
Why in the world do you think I should give you a job? Anyone can see you're a lazy, spoiled crybaby and you have no manners. This is a high-class place I'm running here, so there's no job for you. Now get out. I've got all the lazy bums I need.
Because she doesn't know what to do, she keeps doing the wrong things. And because she keeps doing the wrong things...
Yeah, she's scared and impulsive.
Exactly. She doesn't have enough confidence. Well, not having enough confidence long enough leads towards becoming a character like No Face, where because you
Right.
have no confidence in who you are, you start to adopt the actions of those around you. And so all No Face is doing is looking for a way to please those around him.
Right. He's looking for acceptance, purpose. And when he gets positive feedback from giving gold in exchange for goods and services, he just repeats that transaction again and again because that's what gives him that positive feedback, right? Is he gluttonous for the food that's making him fat and eventually the people? Or is it more about accepting the food in exchange for that attention and that positive feedback?
Well, you said he's looking for purpose, but I think that's what he's not looking for. He's just looking for that acceptance. Maybe he needs purpose.
Well, that
Yeah.
ends up being the solution.
Well, it absolutely ends up being the solution. And I love that it's an artisanal solution. And we can get to what he does in Zaniba's house with making something with his two hands and the difference between that and exchanging gold for services and sort of being in this space. And maybe this is a great place to also shift and talk about this space of the bathhouse and why it takes place in a bathhouse. And No Face, so a character that has no identity, no confidence, no purpose, entering into a space that is really designed for relaxation, for luxury.
Yeah, and it's interesting as an American to watch it and it be a bathhouse. Bathhouses have interesting connotations here that I don't know if they exist in Japan or other places internationally.
From what I read, they do, and I know you're speaking specifically to like prostitution and sex.
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
And so, in a kids movie, that's a bit jarring. But then I sort of, and maybe this is just for my own comfort, sort of transpose just the idea of like a day spa onto it, right?
Well, let me read a quote from Miyazaki.
Okay. Please.
About this. For me, a bathhouse is a mysterious place in town. The first time I saw an oil painting was in a bathhouse, and there was a small door next to the bathtub. I wondered what was behind that door, so I thought up a story about a young man the same age as Hiragi-san, but it was rejected as well. It would be fun if there was such a bathhouse. It's the same as when we go to hot springs. Japanese gods go there to rest for a few days, then return home saying that they wish they could stay a little while longer. It's just a place of relaxation and luxury to Miyazaki's mind, and this is a place where the gods just go to have that. So all of these other sort of things that have been transposed onto this movie around sex work, I mean, here's the thing. At the end of the day, the author's dead. You're allowed to read what you want from it. Miyazaki's intent may not be what came through, but I did not see anything in the film that clued me into the fact that maybe sex work was going on. Like,
I agree.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why, it was jarring at first when they're like a bathhouse. But then, after many times revisiting this movie, I agree. I don't think any of that is there.
Well, it's not just that any of that is there. I think that the themes don't support it. So when you see the turnip god for the first time, he is a scary monster and he scares Chihiro. Then you learn the turnip god is just there for a weekend off. He's been working hard all week and he just needs some relaxation. And there's nothing scary about him. In fact, he's quite kind. He runs the elevator up for her and helps her get where she needs to go. Seeing a bathhouse for the first time, I think we automatically go, oh, that must be a place of ill repute. There must be something going on there that's bad. But as we move into the bathhouse, there are problems with the way it functions and that there is this sort of like excess and balance issue. And this, coming back to No Face, when you have a character like No Face can make a bathhouse into a really bad place because that character has no balance. And so in a place that's designed for luxury, after there's been a lot of work, well, then this character who doesn't really do work and has this empty hole inside of them, they can soak up too much luxury. It'd be like living at Disney World. Like, yes, I'd love to do it, but would that be what's best for me, for my soul, as I move through the world and want to make things?
I'd like to think so.
I'd like to think so too. The No Face in me would like to think so. But I recognize that sitting here making this podcast with you is actually something I really love doing. This is a thing that you and I make together. And I think that it fills my soul up. It helps me with my identity and who I am and how I think of myself. If you only have luxury around you and you don't have that purpose in your life, well, then you become that No Face. And so looking at a bathhouse, that's maybe how we see it, maybe because of our relationship with bathhouses in the United States and the way our economy functions. We think of that as a place where we would like to live and always have all of the most luxurious things. And we know where that can go.
I think you're absolutely right. But that's the theme that sort of weaves its way through many of these characters, is that they're these fully formed people, spirits, whatever we want to call them, who are sort of living that, I think, universal experience of fighting between sort of sin and virtue. Use the term excess and balance.
That's the Catholic coming out in you, isn't it?
Absolutely the Catholic coming out in me.
All right. Well, I did a bunch of Christian stuff in the last one, so it's your turn now.
But I think that you put someone in the environment of the bathhouse, which is a place that's really designed to serve whatever your most like base desire in that moment is. If that is, if we're really going to go down this road of like, if that is just sloth, right? Like that is there for you.
If it's gluttony,
it is absolutely there for you, right? We talked about the implication of lust. It's not in the movie, but the bathhouse really is, I think, this place where there are no checks on those sort of worse instincts that you have. And then we have these characters that have to find the balance. They have to choose to do right. And that's why I think there aren't villains. There are just characters who maybe struggle more than others with that balance.
And everyone has a different relationship with that balance. So you say struggle, and maybe struggle is the right word, but I think the relationship to how much they want to take in and what they need. Kamaji is another great character of excess and balance, in that his body is transformed because of the excess, that he has to have more hands in order to do the job that he must do. And he drinks directly from a tea kettle because he must have tea, but he doesn't have time to even pour it into a cup for himself, despite the fact that he has 4 arms and has all these helpers. And he is the worker at the bottom of this bathhouse that keeps all of it going. And it feels like this amazing just criticism of the economy that we've built up on the back of a worker who must have 4 hands just to keep things going for us.
Yeah, and
he's beautifully drawn.
And that brings me to another thing that I think is just sort of amazing about this movie is there's this criticism of the worst excesses, I think, of this like workman culture, right? And so many of these characters are defined simply by the service they provide, right?
Yeah.
To the point where when they sign an employment contract with Yubaba, she takes their name
and gives them a different name.
A new one.
Kamaji means cauldron old man.
Right. And so these characters are all now defined by what it is that they can do or produce, their role as opposed to who they are. And it's just amazing how many different ways this movie is able to carry that metaphor through so many different characters, and it holds every time.
It is a great film. So a character that is on the other side of that balance that comes to the bathhouse is, of course, the river god that everyone thinks is a stink god. Is that what they call it?
A stink spirit.
A stink spirit, which I the question, of course, and I don't know much about Japanese mythology, and we're going to mispronounce things and probably say foolish things throughout because I'm not well versed in Japanese culture. But I don't know why there would be a stink spirit. Maybe there is, but I know that the idea is that sort of a spirit occupies all of these several like physical things, whether it's a turnip or a river or whatever. And the idea that they all believe that this is a stink spirit, and as though this is something they've encountered before, but it's just a river that's full of sludge that hasn't been cared for out in the real world, or I don't know how we want to, the physical world. There's the spirit world, and then there's the physical world. And this river is full of muck. And in fact, the old bicycle was inspired by an experience Miyazaki had, pulling an old bicycle out of a river and just thinking like, why would someone disrespect this river in this way by putting this into it? And this is a big moment for Chihiro when she finds the bicycle. And this is like the thorn in the lion's paw story that I think is one that we're all familiar with. The mouse pulls the thorn from the lion's paw to learn that the lion is not angry, he's just in pain. This is not just a stink spirit. This is a polluted river. It's a river that has been so disrespected for such a long period of time that its identity has changed, that no one can identify it any longer as a river.
And it's the consequence of the very excess we're talking about in a place like the bathhouse.
And yeah, and we're seeing the consequence of the excess as it happens in the physical world. We see excess in the spirit world, and it can exist in both realms. But this is what happens when it happens in the physical world. Not unlike her parents becoming pigs at the beginning of the film, of this excess as well. And this excess is always connected to sort of capitalism and economy. So it's, dad has credit cards and cash, so we can get all of this. Where we're building, we have to keep building, we have to keep expanding. Therefore, the rivers are going to get polluted. Or
the setting of the
river's gonna
abandoned theme park, right, which sort of kicks all of this off. He mentions that there was, post-war economic prosperity. They built these theme parks everywhere. And then when the economy contracted, they all went bankrupt. They shut down. And it's this consequence of taking in too much, having too much when it feels like there are no limits, and then sort of getting slapped in the face with reality.
Well, this is a period of time in which Japan was going through a major recession as well. And this was his commentary. I think that this film's look, and it does such a superb job of showing all the full spectrum of like what can excess look like, what can balance look like, and there's everything in between. And there is no character, I think, that perfectly represents one or the other, because every single character sort of has a different relationship with excess and balance. But I think one character that stands out as having not a similar journey to Chihiro, but actually having a really interesting journey from excess to discovering balance is Big Baby.
Ow, let go of me! Wow, you're a big baby. Would you mind letting go of me? I'm in a really big hurry.
You came in here to make me sick.
Huh?
You're a bad germ from outside, aren't you?
I'm not a germ, I'm a human. Now would you please let go of me?
You'll get sick if you go outside. So stay here and play with me.
You won't get sick.
Yes, you will. That's why I've never left this room.
Staying in this room is what'll make you sick. Listen, someone very important to me is terribly hurt. I've got to go right now, so please let go of me.
If you go, I'll cry, and Mama will hear me, and Mama will come in here and kill you. Play with me or I'll break your arm.
That hurts! Please, I'll play with you later, okay?
No, I want to play now.
Germs! I've got germs, see?
Bo the baby. Bo literally means boy in Japanese. By the way, all of the characters' names have meaning, which we can go over as well. Chihiro is 1,000 questions. When her name is changed to Sen, it just means 1,000. She's become a number. But Bo is living in this room that is only pillows and cushions and toys.
Mm-hmm.
And it is this globe that is almost perfectly controlled and perfectly cushioned and perfectly safe. I love the drawing of this room. It's actually one of my favorite spaces within all of the settings of the film, because it just does such an incredible job of telling you immediately where you are and taking you to a place that you recognize but you've never been before. The walls are lined with silk cushioning. There are so many pillows that Big Baby's completely engulfed in them.
You know what I noticed in that room?
What's that?
Then just vast array of unopened presents.
It's more than someone can enjoy.
Right.
This is that excess. It's so much that Bo can't even get to the gifts that have been given to them. And so there's no appreciation for what there is. I also love that the room can change from night to day with the click of a button. So when Yubaba decides that it's time to go to bed, Yubaba is Bo's mother.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, let's go with that.
Presumably.
She pushes a button and the ceiling changes from a day setting to a night setting and the lights go out. And so the natural world has no impact on this room. This room is purely engineered for comfort and safety to an incredible excess. And the fact that Bo is Big Baby, I mean, it's like one of the largest characters you encounter that isn't one of the spirits.
Giant baby.
It's a giant baby. There's a suggestion that this is in fact not a baby.
Right. I mean, we don't know what the real relationship to time and space is in the spirit world, But yes, that's what I gathered as well, is that Big Baby is not a baby. Big Baby has been around for some time and has become a giant baby because of that arrested development, that inability to grow emotionally, intellectually, is left to only grow physically.
And as a result, has developed an incredible fear of the outside world, whether it's of germs or danger or whatever else, but does not leave the space and is more tantrumy, more whiny than even Chihiro is when you encounter her at the beginning of the movie, because it feels like Baby sort of hit that stage in their life and then was, instead of being challenged to go outside of their bubble, had a bubble built around them and was able to be in a state of arrested development. And the only thing that burst that bubble is Zeniba's entrance into the story, which, as I said, feels almost villainous.
Well, because it's chaotic. She's just like making these like rash, emotionally driven decisions.
Well, she turns Baby into a mouse.
To a mouse.
Yeah.
And I guess the irony there, though, is when turned into a mouse, yes, there's like that visual, sort of joke of turning the gigantic baby into a tiny little mouse. But that is actually where the character is able to grow.
Yeah.
The character, leaves the room, goes on an adventure of sorts, and finds an identity, finds himself in a way.
He discovers that the world out there is not as scary and dangerous as he thought that it was, chooses to remain as a mouse for a bit longer.
Yeah, has some agency for the first time.
Yeah, has never had any agency in the past. And this is all on that trip to Zeniba. So speaking of names, so Yubaba, we've mentioned a couple times, just means bathhouse old woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Zeniba just means money old woman. And you mentioned to me earlier before we started recording that Miyazaki had said that these are both the same person.
Yeah. And, everything you read with Miyazaki, it's translated, right? So I'm not 100% sure what I'm getting here.
I know. It makes it so difficult to, I read that quote and I hope that was in fact him.
But he did say, that they're the same person. There was some concern whether or not kids would get it, but that it ends up not being a problem. Don't know if it's because they just aren't getting it or if they're actually accepting it's the same person. But I do like something else he said, which is that it's reflective of the two sides of him, that there's this person who he is when he's at work and this person who he is at home. And that Yubaba is sort of the work version and Zeniba is the home version. And I think a lot of us can maybe relate to that, where when you're at work, you're very driven by a specific set of incentives that you perhaps put certain, interests, for lack of a better word, that maybe you hold personally aside for sort of the mission that's at play. And then Zeniba, when we visit her at home at least, is quite nurturing and helpful and caring.
It makes me think that looking at Zeniba, I think balance. Looking at Yubaba, I think excess. But if they're both the same person, is the balance having both of them?
I think that is why, whether he means it literally or figuratively, Miyazaki says that they're the same person.
Well, Chihiro sees them as the same person because Zeniba gives her permission to call her grandmother. I don't think it's the exact word. I don't remember the exact word.
Granny.
Granny, that's right.
Yeah.
And then the next time she sees Yubaba, she calls her granny.
I did notice that.
And Yubaba's a little taken aback, but accepts that she's calling her granny because she's given her permission to do it. They're also both dressed the same, which if Zeniba were not wealthy or ostentatious, why would she dress like Yubaba? So I don't know that I got it.
Homes are very different, right? You have...
Well, we don't know what Yubaba's home is. That's her work.
Well, I thought it was implied that she lived there. That was like her penthouse suite.
It's implied, but it's an office. Like that like she goes up and requests a job. And
so perhaps Zeniba's is actually home.
And we do see Yubaba fly away at one point to unknown locales. And we know that you can take the train to Zeniba's house in the swamp or you can fly there.
Yeah.
So I think that's really fascinating. This film has so many mysteries that watching and rewatching, I mean, you mentioned that you watch it probably every year, and probably for that reason, I would imagine. I know it's part of the reason I do, is that it feels like this just box of toys that you open up, and you not unlike Bo's room, you can't play with them all because there are so many different small characters and figurines and spaces that you can occupy. And you can go look over here in this corner of this film and see this thing, or you can go over in this corner and see this thing. And they all interconnect, but because it's so character driven, there isn't a plot that sort of takes you throughout the film. So you just step into this world of this bathhouse and you just are in it for a while.
And that's, I think, what makes it a movie that I enjoy revisiting, is that it is just a place that you step into and you experience. I mentioned earlier, this is the first time I've really thought deeply and tried to analyze this movie as opposed to just going on the emotional journey. But I think it really is most effective as that sort of, poetry versus prose, right? If you lean into this as a poem where it's an experience, it's a feeling, it's an environment as opposed to a story, that is what makes it sort of this like comfort blanket of a movie that you can revisit from time to time.
Have I been watching it wrong?
I don't know that there is a wrong way to watch it, though.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. Well, I would say the wrong way to watch it is to not watch it, because not unlike you, I think this film is brilliant. And I've always been a big fan of this movie. After watching it this time, it moved up my list. I will say that. I also know it is on the 1,000 movies you must see list from the New York Times. I actually pulled a spot. It's the first movie we watched on here since Jaws that is on this list. And so there's a great review in here about the film. But one of the quotes from it that I wanted to pull that I really love is, "Just because we know that they don't have a mean bone in their bodies doesn't make them seem any less dangerous to her, Chihiro. She doesn't know whom or what to trust." And this is the theme of the movie that we've been exploring this whole time, is that this world is so chaotic and so strange that you don't know what to trust. And that's okay.
What I find noteworthy about that is she goes through this journey. She becomes who she is. At the end of the day, she passes Yubaba's final little test where she has to, guess which of the pigs is her parents. But the bathhouse is still going to be the bathhouse, and it's going to operate in the same way. She's just better equipped. And some of the other characters around her are better equipped to navigate that world as it exists.
And it ends with a question of, is she going to be more respectful of the physical world? There's just this superb moment when she's told not to look back as she's walking away. And you see the temptation come over her to look back at the spirit world. She goes to look back as she's walking down the hill, away from this, down this beautifully drawn hill, back into this Torii Gate, which we didn't cover at all either, but it actually is an entrance into spirit worlds that you don't realize the characters have walked through. And the purple hair tie that was given to her sparkles. And then she looks back forward and she walks back through the Torii Gate back into the physical realm. And you know that there's something coming with her out of this world, a newfound confidence. She has a better sense, maybe not of who she is yet, but of who she will be. And her relationship to the world is going to be altered in a way that maybe she can't quite describe.
And maybe that's why we've had so much trouble describing everything we love about this movie.
I think we did a really wonderful job.
I do think it does warrant, we sort of started production and then weaved into story. And I think stepping back in production, you mentioned the art, and
I don't know that I have a single criticism of it. I think it deserves to be on every single list that it's on.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's listed as one of the 1,000 greatest movies of all time.
And New York Times just did the top 100 of the millennium. It was very high on that list as well.
On that list, it's often, there is no list of greatest animated movies that this doesn't end up on, and it ends up at the very top of many of them.
It does. It does often find itself at the top. I think it's why when John Lasseter brought it to the United States, he believed in it so deeply. He didn't need a samurai sword. He fought against cuts because he saw this movie, and we know John Lasseter has had his history at this point now, but as a champion of this film, you can't help but admire him and thank him for bringing this to the United States. He oversaw all of the dubbing, so we get to have a really beautifully dubbed version of this movie. Although I do plan on seeing it in its Japanese at some point with the subtitles, just purely for the experience. But for the sake of this episode, thought it was important that we both watch the dubbed version. But both are always available on HBO.
Yeah, it's kind of wild, actually, that the number of times I've seen this. I've only watched the dubbed version. Presence of my children for most of those viewings has something to do with that. But
not a bad idea to get them used to subtitles at this point. But though. 10 feels like the place to start doing subtitles.
Yes, 5, not so much.
No.
But I'd love to revisit it, though. Yeah, for the purposes of this conversation, I think it's important that, one, we watched the same version, but two, that we watched the version that most people are likely to encounter. Because if this podcast can do, anything good in the world, it really is to bring people to these movies that we're seeing instead of the sold out movie, especially the ones as deserving as Spirited Away.
Absolutely. And that's a great place to end. And the one thing I'll say is these films often are shown as Fathom events at nearby theaters. If you see a Studio Ghibli film, Spirited Away being a great example of it, come up, cannot recommend it enough. It is a fantastic experience. It is a whole family experience, but I promise you will not be disappointed.
My family's gone to quite a few of those. I feel like every year they do the sort of Ghibli fest. We've seen a number of them, and it's always really wonderful to see them on the big screen.
Well, let's take a break, and then we'll come back into our MVPs and wrap up this episode of Sold Out.
Welcome back to Sold Out. We just had a very enjoyable discussion about Spirited Away, a movie that we both absolutely adored, perhaps as much as we have adored a movie since Jaws, probably.
Yeah.
And now we get to highlight our MVPs of the movie, the individual or individuals who contributed what we thought was the most important aspect of the movie.
Mine is deeply unimaginative.
I don't think you can be blamed for being so unimaginative.
My MVP of the movie is Miyazaki. This is his vision brought to life through many, many artists. It is very difficult to choose an MVP on a film like this, particularly when it's a large group of artists that brought it together and the art is absolutely gorgeous. Choosing an actor is very difficult because I didn't watch the Japanese version. I wouldn't know how to assess whether an actor is doing a good job or not. I can hear emotion, but that would be the extent. And then choosing it for a dubbed actor would feel false in some ways, even though I think the dubbing is fantastic and really, really,
really well
excellently done. But this film exists because it lived inside of Miyazaki and he brought it into the world. Like many of his films, he maintains a highly collaborative place, but it is his vision that we're watching. And this story is so unique and so beautifully told and so layered, and that it is written for a 10-year-old girl, but it is something that I can take something away from and learn. And I feel this is one of the rare instances where I can watch a film and I walk away and I am a better person for having seen it. I think oftentimes I'm happy when I'm entertained, but this film does something beyond that, which, I mean, I called it a fairy tale earlier. And that's what fairy tales are there to do. They're there to teach us lessons. And this film is a modern fairy tale that teaches lessons about a very complex world. You know, we occupy, but it's occupied by so many other types of things and people. And so I love the film for all of those reasons. He is also responsible for the only 2 non-English films to win the Best Animated Oscar.
Right.
This and The Boy and the Heron most recently. And so, you know, he's an absolute incredible filmmaker, so influential and involved in the production. The New Yorker once called him the auteur of anime.
Which is exactly correct.
He is just keeps making movies, keeps saying he's going to retire, and then not unlike you, Baba.
Movies have been his last movie.
Well, Mononoke was the first time it was going to be his last movie in 1996. As I said, he just had a film come out last year, or in the last year. And so I am grateful that he's in this world. I'm grateful that he's making movies. I'm grateful that his films have been brought to the United States and that I was fortunate enough to be introduced to them. So Miyazaki for me is absolutely the MVP. How about you though, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I think describing him as an auteur is absolutely accurate. And when you are dealing with a amazing product of an auteur. It's very difficult not to choose said auteur, but I did anyway.
Oh, I really thought we were going to have the same one on this one again, which
what's funny is I did too, but I thought it would be,
okay,
the other way.
So who's your MVP?
My MVP is Joe Hisaishi, the composer of the film. The movie is it is Miyazaki's vision, but it's a collaboration between many, many artists. And I think if there is a singular artist whose single contribution did the most, it is Hisaishi's score. It is this connective tissue between a series of scenes that are definitely connected, but do not follow a typical plot structure. You mentioned this earlier, that there's not like a traditional plot that carries you through.
There's no script.
There's no script. So there's this series of images and scenes, but mostly feelings. And you have to be able to connect those so that it works as a film, as a completed singular project. And the score really does that. It's at once beautiful. It's absolutely just beautiful and calming and comforting. It's a reason I think this feels like that comfort blanket of a movie. But when the movie calls for it, when the story calls for it, it gets messy and discordant. Is that a word? I think.
Dissonant, maybe?
Dissonant. But it just conveys whatever the emotions are, whether good or bad. What I'm about to say is going to make no sense at all. The score of this movie sounds animated. Like I was listening to it in the car on the way here to record this episode. And there was something about it that was just like, yeah, this belongs in an animated movie. And I don't know if it's like the tempo, the specific notes, but there's something like, I don't know, like almost bouncy about it.
Interesting.
That just feels so fitting to the movie that it accompanies. And yeah, if I can't watch this movie, which I can't be constantly staring at this 2 hour and 15-minute animated movie, I'll throw this score on because it's just really, really excellent and it made me feel something.
I feel like I've been making a mistake by not throwing the score on when I sit and do work. This may be my new go-to. I think the score, everything you said about it is right. You've used the term connective tissue, I think, in many films that we've discussed, and I think it's a really valuable term when we think about, like, do things hold together? But I think this is an instance where I 100% align, where there are all of these pages, and it is the glue that is holding all of it together for me. The other thing that the score really did, and why I'm so glad that you chose this as your MVP, because the film does exactly what its title promises. It spirits you away into another world. It transports you to a place that you've never been, an emotional experience that maybe you've never had before. And the music does precisely the same thing. It takes you to a place that is otherworldly, but weirdly familiar. And I don't know how you do that with just sound. I am no musician. I am no composer, but I am deeply grateful and impressed by the work that the composer did on this film. So great choice.
He scores all of them. So
shocking. What a shocker.
If you are watching a Studio Ghibli movie, you are going to be treated to his score.
Did you know that there is a Studio Ghibli theme park in Japan?
I did. It's relatively new, I believe.
It is.
I want to go to there.
I want to go to there too. I know that it will be the least Disney experience you'll ever have.
Is there a cat bus? I need there to be a cat bus.
Oh, I'd get on the cat bus. I don't know much about it. I just know that it exists, and I know that I'm going to Japan next June.
Oh, you bastard.
And it may be a stop.
I think you need to make it one.
Well, our next stop is going to be Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
We're going to Hogwarts.
We're going to Hogwarts next weekend. We knew we would spend some time in Hogwarts. I'm really interested to go to one of the earlier films, one of the more kiddie movies directed by Columbus. I never revisit these ones. I live in a Harry Potter household.
I like Harry Potter. This isn't special to say anymore, but I've read every book multiple times. I've seen the movie a bunch of times. But yeah, the early ones are the ones I revisit the least.
I almost never revisit them. I only recently did, it's because I was rereading the books since I was rewatching the movies as I was rereading the books. I really do love the Harry Potter universe. I'm not super excited about what they've been doing with it recently, but I'm ecstatic to go back to a movie that I almost never ever watch and experience it with you. So that will be next week. We are going to be hitting Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. But today it has been absolutely lovely and poetic discussing Spirited Away with you. So
yeah, it was great. Great movie. If you have gotten this far and haven't seen it, you have made a mistake. Please go do that now.
You should have paused in the middle of this episode.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us on Sold Out. We have new episodes every week on Tuesdays, both on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We are on YouTube. Make sure and like, subscribe, leave comments, let us know what you think. And in the meantime, stay connected with us on social media. We are on Instagram, Threads, TikTok. We are at soldout_pod. And please check out everything that we are doing at upleftmedia.com. We are producing multiple programs, not just this one, including Nailed It Novels with Rosie Page, which is also available on YouTube. Upleftmedia.com. Check out the blog there. Stay connected to everything that we do. Ian, where can they follow you?
I am at Ian_upleft on all of the things. And then I am also now on Letterboxd. I'm publishing movie reviews pretty regularly. I'm trying to see as much as I can this year. And so putting movie reviews out. I'm writing short reviews for all the films that we watch on the show as well, posting them to the blog. So if you're interested in written reviews, we're going to have those there as well.
I am upleft_Michael at all of those same places, including Letterboxd, where I have been rating movies, not really writing much, but I think I'm going to have to change that now.
Gauntlet thrown,
and caught, picked up, I don't know, wedged in my forehead.
I've never thrown a gauntlet before. I'm not really sure what the etiquette is.
I don't know either. Anyway, thank you again for joining us here on Sold Out. Can't wait to talk to you all next week about Harry Potter.
See you next week on Sold Out. Sold Out is an Uplift Media production, hosted and written by Ian Tarter and Michael Smith. Edited, sound engineered, and produced by Ian Tarter, with special thanks to Rosie Page.